Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Red Tool House.
On today's video, we are starting a new chicken project that I think is going to be a little daunting. In fact, I think Kelly thinks it's daunting, don't you?
Sounds daunting.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Come along, let me show you what we've got going on.
So as you just saw, we have added to our chicks, and we've added more laying hens. We've got 52. And these are, it was a set that we ordered that is a brown egg laying set.
Come in sets?
What is it? It was a package?
I guess it was a set because we ordered. Yeah, it was the brown egg layer set. So 52 little fuzzballs that we got.
52 in a set.
52, that's true. That does make
Ooh,
a good set
pig
size.
fight.
Yep. Everybody's in heat.
But we are realizing, or have realized for some time, that we need to do something different as far as keeping them once they're ready to come out of the brooder.
Yeah, you can see over my shoulder here, that's our current chicken accommodation, is our greenhouse. Well, the whole point in building that greenhouse was to overwinter the chickens there so they could have the solar heat to warm up. It's, you know, it almost makes fried chicken to have them in there in the summertime because it gets just a little too warm. The fox issues that we're having right now have kept us from being able to free range these at all. So we're really having to keep them tied up in there. So for those of you that have been with the channel for a long time, you've seen the various iterations we've had for our chicken housing. How many would you say we've gone through now?
Maybe 5?
Well, let's list them off. We had the phone booth coop was what we started with,
right,
with 12 chickens when we first
right,
started doing any of this. So, which we still have the phone booth coop.
Yep.
We don't use it.
It's so cute.
Yeah, it is. It just weighs a metric ton. And it's fallen on me before. There's a video about that as well. It hurt. So the phone booth coop, and then we built the larger coop up at the house, cantilevered over the hillside. And we had 2 little pastures set up there. And that didn't work. The reason why the phone booth coop didn't work, of course, is because it was just too small. We needed something bigger, and we needed something we could move around. Up on the hill here, we built the larger coop from the deck. We took off the workshop when it used to be our garage apartment, and built a coop there, had 2 small pastures. That didn't work very well either. We just weren't happy with that layout. It wasn't big enough room for them to range. As we keep raising our numbers of birds, obviously we discover our accommodations need to be bigger. So what do we do next?
Well, we moved the chicken coop that we had up near the house down to the lower level.
Yeah, down here.
Right.
Yeah, it used to actually sit right there, right after the culvert.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So we had it there, and we had just a small pasture. We were trying to, each time we try to free range, and unfortunately we never learned by our mistakes because we free range for a bit, everything's fine, and then...
Well, we've just had predators pick them off one by one. We'd noticed one was missing, and when you have a large flock, noticing one's missing is difficult.
Yeah. But
then we started finding piles of feathers, and then when we knew that our beautiful Buff Orpington rooster was missing, we realized we're getting down low.
Yeah.
So although it was a great setup, we weren't able to add free ranging to that, and we just really wanted to be able to do that.
Yeah, so it always became an issue of accommodation. So the next thing we did is we took that coop, we moved it around the bend into our pasture to behind us around the hillside, and we added on. We added an 8x8 attachment to that because I was trying to get up. All this time I'm trying to get up to about 100 egg layers. A, we eat a lot of eggs. B, we sell a lot of eggs. And C, I wanted to have all this extra egg protein for my pigs.
Right.
But I've never really been able to accommodate that or reach that number because there's always something running against that. So we moved around the corner there. We detailed that a lot on our channel. We had these 2 5,000 square foot pastures that we'd rotate back and forth. And the issue was overwintering. The pastures would work great. They'd heal, they'd recover well in the growing months when I would have them on one side, on the other. I had the automated door, had all kinds of stuff going on there. That worked fine. But when they overwintered in there, they would just obliterate both sides of that. And it took forever for that to try to come back. And there was never a chance for it to come back.
Yeah.
So we needed a place to overwinter.
So we had too many birds, I think, for the
Yeah.
2 huge pastures that we had.
Well, it's just a sacrificial area in the winter is what we discovered we needed. So that's why we built this, is A, for growing, B, it's producing great compost with all their manure, with the wood chips. But now it's time to figure out what we're going to do when it comes to the warm months. So really 9 months to 10 months out of the year, we want to figure out where we want to keep them. So that's why we're launching this new project. So about a week ago, I drug home this monstrosity, which Kelly loves it when I bring home junk, right?
It's fun. It's good times.
It is. It really does a lot to really beautify the front of the workshop, I think. I think it actually fits in pretty well with the front of the workshop right now.
That's what's so sad.
Yeah, it is. It's an indictment on the guy that's responsible for maintenance around here. Anyway, we digress. So what is it that we're sitting on here that looks odd? Well, this is an old horse trailer, and there's a funny story behind this. But we'll make a long story short, which is kind of tough for Red Tool House to do, isn't it? So, long story short, my brother's horse trailer parked beside his barn. Big windstorm comes, huge oak tree, flat Stanley. Actually bent this front axle. So if you see as we walk around it here, it's a little splayed out. Back axle's fine. The frame's fine. The fenders are obviously well, we don't need. Who needs fenders? But the plan is, when I first brought this over, I thought I would just strip it all down and use the rolling frame, the rolling chassis, take an axle off, use the rolling chassis to make a mobile coupe. That's really the goal here, is to get mobile. But after looking at this, all the weight still associated with this frame, we're going to go a different route. So I think the plan is to pull one of the axles off, probably pull the straight axle, the one that's not bent, pull it off, and just use the axle alone, and then build an entire new frame out of either wood or metal. We'll just see what design that we can come up with that's going to be the lightest. But the plan is for a mobile coupe.
Which we've always loved, Joel Salatin's mobile coupe. And we've always wanted to have something similar, but because of our terrain, it's just not possible. To pull something that size up and down these hills is just dangerous.
Yeah, if you look at Salatin, John Siskovich, any of these guys that are doing large-scale egg layers, and of course, Salatin's like 1,200, 2,400 chickens, something crazy like that. I don't know if John's still doing that huge amount or not, but they have these running gear, which is a farm product. It's basically just a frame system that's 2 axles. Obviously, the front axle steerable. It's like a wagon. You hear them called farm wagons or hay wagons. We always called them running gear. And they can obviously, Joel Salatin daisy chains them. I think he has 2 or 3 of them linked together, hooks his tractor up, moves it to the next spot each day, which is great. Those things are super heavy, but he's on decently flat or rolling land, and it makes it easy for them to move around. In our situation, those of you who follow the channel know that we don't have anything like that as far as land goes. I need something that's small and is light enough that I can hook it up to the side-by-side and drive up one of these steep hills to a next bench, into the woods, into our old log staging area, in the front yard or the backyard if we wanted to for a little while, down in the lower pastures. And that's light enough and agile to be able to move around.
So, which made us think of Justin Rhodes and the chickshaws that he has created, which, if you're going to have a lot of chickens, I mean, that's a great concept, but if you're going to have a lot of chickens, it's just not going to work for that.
Yeah, I think his chickshaw, the one that he moves by hand, I think he gets 36, 39 chickens in the video. So, that's a decent amount, which is still a little bit lower than the number we want. I think he recently just converted his chickshaw that he can tow it with his side-by-side. So that's kind of the idea, is a chickshaw-esque type of mobile coupe that heavy enough wheels, low center of gravity, that if I'm taking it up the side of a mountain, it's not going to kill me if it tries to tip over or anything like that. But the build concept of the chickshaw, where it's like a 3-season, so it's going to be more chicken wire, more welded wire, more hardware cloth than it is wooden or steel structure, so it keeps the weight down. And obviously it's breezy, all those type of things, and low center of gravity. So instead of building a peak, in my mind, I always want to build something with a peak so I can walk into it. Well, if I build it right,
Right.
then I don't have to step into it. That's what I like about his chickshaw design. He doesn't have to step into it. The hardware cloth on the bottom allows all the manure to fall through, so we're not having to go in and clean it out. And of course, accessing the nesting boxes, you do it from the outside.
And the reason that we're so interested in a mobile coop is with all of the experience that we've had with the stationary coops, it doesn't provide enough greenery for them to be eating, and we've just had too much loss. I mean, we can't do the free range, so we even tried letting the chickens out just in the evening so that they didn't venture off too far. They'd go back at dusk. We've tried that. We've just had too many plucked off, but we want them to have, all of the green grass that they can eat on, and the clover and the bugs. And so we want to be able to move them, and we've had such great success with the poultry netting.
Yeah, absolutely. The electric poultry netting we use, it's a Premier One product, so I think almost everybody knows about that. But when we use that, there's just no predators getting in. It just, even the deer won't go over to try to get into places. So the plan with the mobile coop, of course, is to do just like you see with Salatin and all these guys that use these mobile coops. Bring the coop to a certain spot and then surround it entirely with your poultry netting.
Right.
What we've done in the past, and my mistake, and the way the greenhouse is set up now, is the poultry netting's just on one end. So if something decides to dig under or dig through, then it's still going to be an issue. But surrounding that entirely with the electric poultry netting is going to give us the best benefit.
Right. So no matter what permanent structure we've had them in, we've had some type of pressure from predators. Even in our permanent two-pasture setup, where we had a single strand of electric around the bottom, there would be possum. We think maybe even raccoons got in there. So we always had some type of loss, no matter what permanent structure we've had.
So we put the automatic door on to close. We had the electric around the bottom. And there just always seemed to be some way these MacGyver-like predators at night would come in and get our chickens.
But we've never had that issue, never, if they were surrounded by poultry netting.
Yeah, the only thing I have right now with this setup, again, the poultry netting's on the backside, is I just have to make sure I don't have any cracks or crevices in here. One thing I am getting, of course, is every once in a while, a field mouse or even a small rat will get in there and try to get into the feed, so I'll have to set traps. With the electric poultry netting, even that's not going to get in if it was completely surrounded.
Right.
So one of the other benefits of having a mobile coop and moving it around, especially here, is there are areas here on the farm that I don't have the pigs having access to. The chickens obviously don't have access to, so I mean that's an area that I have to mow. So we've got an area where we've got some of our perennials in place, some of our fruit trees, our berries, those type of things. It would be great to be able to roll the coop in there temporarily, set the electric poultry netting around it, let them come through. Again, we're not going to leave them there long because they could tear up stuff, but let them stay in there so they can get in there and eat a lot of that down, eat the grass down. Of course, they're going to be putting a lot of nitrogen in the ground, and then move them on to the next spot. So there's areas up where we do our campfires, where we have cookouts with our friends, and when we invite people over, it'd be great to be able to move those chickens through periodically to supercharge that area, but then also do some maintenance and keep me from burning a bunch of diesel mowing it.
And also possibly cut down on the insects that are in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that we've talked about is with having this number of chickens, we've talked about dividing our flocks and maybe having a smaller flock or set up near the garden.
Small, like a miniature set?
Like a miniature.
Chickens?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so our youngest son, Cam, who's 14, he's had chickens before, and because of all this predation, we had to integrate them in. But looking again, he wants to have his own flock. So we're thinking about maybe taking that, a smaller flock, and making that kind of our garden flock or our house flock. And that would be a permanent setup, of course, again, surrounded with poultry netting. But it would be this compost generation system. And I really like watching Edible Acres. I'll link to him here or link to him below. But Edible Acres, they're on where he has his chickens. I think it's less than 2 acres. The entire lot's less than 2 acres. And he's got this little front yard setup there where they just generate tons and tons and tons of compost, literally, with, I think he's got 30-some chickens now. So it's a very small enclosure, but because of him doing the deep litter method with wood chips, turning and churning all that stuff, there's no odor. He's getting great egg production, and he's just getting, I mean, wheelbarrow loads of compost each week out of it.
Right.
So we really like that idea. As we garden more, as we discover there's more need for compost, we want to do more perennials, and keep expanding our garden, and we have an incredibly terrible soil here.
Right, yeah.
We want to try to use that to some degree. So we may end up splitting out and having two or maybe even 3 different flats.
You got the wood chop in the... Bleh.
I wanted to show the trailer.
Bleh.
I promise I'll put siding on the wood shop one of these days.
Yeah. Don't touch me.
Anywho's. Okay, the whole reason in doing this video was, A, to kind of launch our new project. So when you see me starting to work on this thing, or you may have even seen that sitting there in a couple of our previous videos and wonder, hey, look, Troy's dragging even more junk. There is a method to my madness, although some people question my madness or my methods.
Including his wife.
All the time. So the plan is to kick that off. We'll share some of our layouts. I'm still trying to, in my head, and my head is this swirling rivulet cascading with thought.
Okay.
Yeah, got that. So we'll put some plans down. We'll share them with you all. We'll show progress of that. But we really felt we needed to explain. If you may be shaking your head saying, "My goodness, here they go again, tearing out something and doing all over." Yeah, that's
we feel
part
the
of
same
it.
way.
Yeah, it's part of it with homesteading and farming, especially in rural, steep Appalachia. It's a definite challenge.
You just have to jump in and then make adjustments as you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you have any tips for Troy to add to the thoughts that are swirling in his mind,
yes,
those are welcome.
Help me corral this cascade of rivulets of thought. And,
I don't even know what that means.
Ask Mr. Taggart, he knows. Okay, so we'll keep y'all posted. Thanks for joining us. Take care.